I hope all of you have read his Vita because it's incredible. I don't want to waste any time because you want to hear him, not me. Except to say two things, okay? One is that he's a professional tennis player.
Well, not anymore.
Well, he was. And you told me you're trying to get for the over 70 age cup.
World Championship.
Yeah, okay.
I'm trying to compete.
And the other thing is you may know that occasionally our presidents in this country give awards to people that are outstanding in science and arts and so on and technology. And when they do that, everybody goes to the White House and it's a big ceremony. Well, he had that happen to himself in Portugal from the president of Portugal. I don't have to say anything else. So tell me over here. Thank you.
Okay, so
Okay.
First of all, thanks, Pete. It's an incredible pleasure to be back here, and also to be here to present the topic that I'm most involved nowadays. So this is a very simple topic with an unbelievable ambition, which is to develop the Internet of Nature. Nature is the largest market in the world. It's worth 9 trillion euros. And there's so many internets of things and all kinds that I was really glad when I saw Nadine Gal, which she's from MIT and National Geographic, to come up with that name to describe what she thought Internet of Nature should be. And that is to use sensors, satellite imageries, and algorithms to create data to enhance the urban ecosystem management. And when I saw that, she doesn't know, but she's going to be invited to go to Portugal and discuss with us. But I immediately thought, well, this is so great that it can be broader, you know. So why not consider the whole nature, not just urban nature? And my inspirations to sort of starting this development were work that I've done previously, you know, and that comes very nicely to what's happening right now on the AI developments. When you look to the large models right now, they are multimodal. They use pictures, words, and numbers. They are based on data infrastructure. I really think AI is going to be critical for augmented reality and virtual reality glasses, which will become dominant in the next 5 to 10 years. So those are the inspirations, and I'm going to cover them as quickly as I can. I really think also that to create Internet of Nature, we have to understand how humans are going to interact with machines and nature in the future. What will be the role of us, humans? What machines can provide us, and how should we respect nature? I'm going also to do a proposal for the disruption, which is to really create Internet of Nature. I have appendices for you when you have insomnia regarding on how to program in Python multimodal models and a plan for the agents of the Internet of Nature. And both of these appendices were done with the help of Claude. Not a friend, but you know, the two you know well. So many years ago here at Cornell, I worked with Pete in a crazy paper on how to use words, pictures, and numbers to do environmental modeling. And we did that because we thought, well, there are lots of areas where basically the language is the tool, you know, namely many social sciences. There are others where you have numerical models, and images, you know, are fundamental to visualize what we want to communicate. You know, so really right now, if you look to the large multimodal models, you see that they are the tools that enable us to deal with these three sorts of representations of knowledge. Another inspiration was development of the National Information Geographic System in Portugal, which was a huge, huge project. We had a very unusual Secretary of State for the Environment, And basically by 1998 we had a virtual reality spatial-based infrastructure where people could flew over Portugal. And right now I think that would be, and it's coming to be the basis of almost everything. So actually, this is a video of what we were doing like 30 years ago, and to fly over the terrain. And right now, as I said, it's commonplace. Another inspiration has been the work I've been doing in a company that we started in 2000, Y-Dreams, with augmented reality and virtual reality. So we became a dominant company by 2010. We won the unofficial Oscar, and we did that because we created foundational knowledge on how to georeference everything. We look to augmented reality in a completely different way. With augmented reality, basically, you have to know the coordinates of every point in your field of vision, and because you know those coordinates, you can do lots of stuff, and I'm going to go back on that in a minute. So this is another inspiration, which is a project of a microcar called Tuga. Tuga is a derogatory name for Portuguese.
This is everything. Speed. Beauty.
This is the brainchild of a Portuguese architect that wanted to create the smallest vehicle on Earth, size of a motorcycle, with the speed and comfort and robustness of a car. And I've been involved since the beginning. I'm a co-founder of the company, which, by the way, is an American company, and it intends to be listed on NASDAQ soon. And basically, I learned a lot through this development, and I had lots of students doing theses related for air pollution. What would change with very small electric cars? The traffic, the parking, the cities themselves. And this is, of course, something really, really crazy, which is to have the possibility of having drones transporting the vehicles over large distances. So we are developing, we have the first prototype of the vehicle, we are developing everything else. And this will happen in America first, which is interesting, and in Utah, and later on also in other parts of the world. So, all of these experiences were the basis of thinking on how we can handle nature. What can we do for nature and for humans using and enjoying nature? So, first of all, what are the advantages we have? And when we have hands, we have dexterity in our hands. It's very difficult for a robot, for instance, to use dishwashers and place all the dishes. We have the emotional part and so forth. And this is sort of a joke. The French created a project where the human search engine, if you have any question, you can ask 600 French librarians, and as a result, 72 hours later, which is fantastic, you know. Only, you know, here we are with all these models, and we know instantly everything you can, but you know, there is the human side. What will bring the librarians to the and they can, you know. So we cannot minimize the humans. So when dealing with humans and machines, we also understood at Y Dreams that there was the side of the software, you know, how to combine AI, AR, and VR for all kinds of problems. There were the question of the interface, of the interfaces. You know, the interface will happen with glasses. You know, probably computers will disappear, but also the machines, the robots, and when we were developing all these projects, we started thinking that we had to be sort of have an approach that will be much more fundamental in terms of looking to the advantages that AI, AR, and VR bring to the table. And I really think those advantages are that we are indexing knowledge in a completely different way, and we are indexing the world in a completely different way. And if we are doing that, we realized that we needed to have an atomic entity for the Internet of Nature that would be very different. And so we created spatial tags, and now we are developing pilot projects in Portugal with those spatial tags. And basically what we are doing is sort of like, imagine virtual post-its covering everything you see, and then organize those virtual post-its in a systematic way, and in a way that then enable you to handle information that is connected, for instance, from sensors and from both local and remote sensors. We are also looking to what's happening in the areas connected to the, you know, to the broad environmental area. And one of the most interesting is this idea of smart labels, which encapsulate sensors, displays, and sometimes actuators. And this is a project of a company that I started, Invisible, with a Swedish company called Innocentia, which has a sensor to measure volatile organics in meat. And this is just ultra low power. So what's happening now is that besides the software and the hardware like robots and sensors, we are having the possibility of creating a new family of hardware which is printed, which is low cost, low energy consuming, and can be pervasive. Of course, here I'm at Cornell and I saw the work I was doing robots in agriculture. There are the hard part, the robots, but I really think what's changing everything and enable us to create the Internet of Nature is the engine, which is AI. And in AI, I think the large multimodal models are a very important part. You know, if you look to what we did to do environmental impact statements in the past, we had all these specialists doing reports, and then someone would read those reports and would basically synthesize them in the impact statement. You know, and to do that, they had to structure the reports, you had to structure the data, you know, you had to have a certain format. And basically you were working with a restricted set of specialists. Right now with large models, you have everything. You have all the specialists. You have non-structured data. You have all kinds of information out there. It's a completely different ballgame. So that part of the knowledge side is handled in a completely different way than from the past, and it can also incorporate the traditional data sets and the traditional models. So basically we start thinking, okay, these large models can be empower something that will be different, that it's now called the agent. And the agent is someone that will, a machine entity that will sort of follow or instruct a number of steps, including the large models, but also the traditional data sets, the models, and the interface with the world. And when we looked to what would be the consequences of us having AI as an engine and an interface on augmented reality and virtual reality, is that suddenly we don't only have the data world, which is the one that we operate traditionally, the traditional internet, which is 2D, but we also have the augmented world, which is the digital layers that we overlay on top of the real world. We have the digital twin world, which is the digital copy of reality. And then, of course, you can have the virtual real world. So people wonder why Apple and Meta and Lenovo and all the other companies are doing glasses. Why are they investing on virtual reality and augmented reality? Is it because with the augmented world, I look to that bottle and I can order? Or I see your glasses and I can order similar glasses. The world will become a huge store, instantly. And Google has that already. Okay, so everyone questions, why do they spend billions a month in glasses that that is the goal. And, and of course, digital twin worlds will replace pretty much all the medical images that we have on ourselves, like everything else. So we are going to have a revolution that is being driven, of course, by AI, but the contribution of AR and VR will be very important. So we thought, well, this fits totally well in the vision of creating an internet of nature, where the AI part will be fundamental, the traditional databases will be fundamental, the traditional models will be fundamental, but we have to think in terms of augmented reality. A farmer will go to a farm with glasses and we will overlay all the information on top of the plants, and we will be able to see if they need water or if they have diseases and so forth, and basically instruct or have a robot. Or in the end, you don't have a farmer and you have an agent that commands everything, including the robot. So, students of mine decided to think about an agent that will show people what are the impacts of cars. So, and connecting all these technologies, AR, and VR. So basically they discovered that there is a data set where there is an association of their registration plates of the car with its emissions. It's too bad that we don't have sound. I mean, you can do that with glasses. So they look to the plate, they look to the emissions, and then they bring air pollution model, and they color the model. Okay, and with augmented reality glasses, you see the invisible. Okay, so I really think this is going to happen easily in not only in urban mobility, but in many other areas. You are going to turn the invisible into visible. Okay, so my point until now is that, okay, we have AI that basically enables us to get into all the unstructured knowledge collected forever in almost every area and provide some structure and answers to our questions. We have the possibility of using all the traditional knowledge, the legacy knowledge, the databases and the models. And we have these new tools, augmented reality and virtual reality, and all together, they will enable us to do something we didn't do before. And we can do it in a way where we have agents that basically coordinate, orchestrate the different components, and we have also the physical aspects, the sensors, the robots, contributing for the results. But the results are for what? And for that, and to answer that question, it's important to understand that what is nature? What does nature provide us? What are the services of nature? And also to look to what the markets are associated with the nature services. So everyone knows the intrinsic services, which are like 90% of the $9 trillion that nature is worth, agriculture and all the extractive industries. Those are intrinsic services where we are going to use the data, the augmented and digital twin worlds. But then you are going to have, and we have offset services. For a farmer, if he follows certain practices, or owner of a forest, he can sell carbon credits. For someone that preserves an ecosystem, they can have biodiversity credits. So there are offset services that turn also into a new market. And then there are derivative services of using nature, for instance, for films, for tourism, for video gaming. So we have to merge both. What is nature? What are nature services? What are nature markets on one hand? And then how we can use the knowledge about nature and all the different processes to help us humans and also to help nature and every time we want to restore ecosystems or preserve ecosystems. And so we start looking to, the Internet of Nature can be seen from the point of the interface. So we are going to have an augmented nature using augmented reality, the digital twin nature using digital twins, the virtual nature, and those are connected to the markets, and we are going to have, of course, AI as the engine. And how are we going to come to all of this vision to reality? The idea is that we are going to develop agents, and these agents will be used by farmers, they will be used by institutions that are in the biodiversity conservation or even landowners. And these agents will have access to the data infrastructure, to all the data, to multimodal models, to the legacy models, and the interaction will be with the augmented and virtual representations of nature. So in the appendix, what I have is sort of a list of agents for a number of areas that can be developed in this way. So one fundamental component of developing anything, and in this case the Internet of Nature, is knowledge. And right now, what happens with knowledge is sort of unbelievable. We have Elsevier or Springer publishing our papers. Sometimes we pay them to publish their papers. The universities pay the subscriptions. And now, in the end, they retain the rights of our knowledge and they sell it to OpenAI. It's a great business. It's more profitable than Apple. Okay. So, in the spirit of being sort of revolutionary, I really think that we can develop Internet of Nature in a completely different way. Because we can have, of course, peer review, and have a journal, and have an archive, and have conferences. But all those contributions can go to a Nature Foundation model, and we can use attributions to financially reward contributions that enable a farmer to get money, you know. So we have to model the Nature Foundation model in a way where we incorporate all those articles to train the model and to be used by the model to provide revenues and benefits to individuals and institutions. And by doing a partnership with major university groups and companies, we can really create such infrastructure where you have the benefits of the peer-reviewed journal from an academic standpoint, but where researchers will be rewarded instead of having to pay. And you know, and to develop this, of course, we are creating in Lisbon a world-class ecosystem of people of different areas. I never imagined that Lisbon would be a cool city, but there are people that think so. So we have lots of people coming there, and we are doing just that. But that is not enough, you know. And one of the reasons I'm here is that I'd love to work with Cornell. We also start looking to funding, and we have two major funds to help in this venture. You know, and that is sort of the knowledge architecture. What we are going to do also is at the other side of the Internet of Nature, which is a community project. You know, I studied at Virginia Tech, and one of my contemporaries is the CEO of Craigslist. And Craigslist is really a completely different type of orientation. It's minimalist. So I started talking with people in Lisbon to create a community project, the Internet of Nature, a minimalist that will be unbelievably useful for everyone. And we start looking, what are the great services we have? For instance, every Wednesday, I go to a place close to my house in Lisbon where the farmers are going to bring fruit and vegetables every Wednesday, fresh. For 15 euros, I get food for the whole week. And so we start looking to everything like this, all these services, you know. And then we look to apps. For instance, Cornell has one of the most famous apps in history to detect birds. You know, Merlin, everyone uses it. So we are trying to compile all this knowledge and create the community project. This is for everyone. It's not like the agents, which is sort of like B2B. You know, this is like B2C, or even just something to see. So we are developing this as well. And our development plan is to start in June, developing prototype agents, creating teams in different areas. Right now, even I can develop an agent in one day. You know, it's a terrible agent, but I can do it. You know, with Anthropic and Google tools, you can do it now. And we can develop a prototype AI companion. I'm going to organize what we call Explorer. I don't like Summit, but it was the first word, in September. And we are going to start developing everything in 2026. These are my contacts. You know, every Sunday I publish something called Sunday News, which is sort of a summary of news that you can subscribe freely. Most of these news come from my previous students that are spread out all over the world. It's like espionage made public and free. And in the White Dreams collection, you can see all my work. And I really hope that you're interested in cooperating in this adventure. And thanks again, Pete, for inviting me, and you all for hosting me. And if you have any questions, anxieties, what have you, I'm here to answer.
Thank you.
It's too bad that we do have the sound for the car, but I'll send you later, because this was done. Our partners in videos is a creative director for Ridley Scott, the movie director, and it's spectacular. But anyway,
I have one question, and that is, we're told that AI takes a lot of energy,
you are totally right.
and so you're going to use more of it.
Yeah.
Is that a problem? What are you going to do about that?
Okay, so I have another side, very interesting project on how to be on that side. First of all, I really think that I'm not so sure that, on the design of the AI models themselves. I think they can be more economical than they are. What we are talking here is sort of a much more focused model with less requirements. But even so, the advantage of my connection to university is that I gave students to explore all the kinds of challenges. So one of the challenges I gave a student was the internet of free energy. How do you create the internet of free energy? And and I really think that it depends on your location, but the calculations we have done is that with solar, energy storage is critical, solar batteries, wind. I really think and that's one part of the installing the center in Lisbon, is to be energy self-sufficient. I really think that another area that the most interesting work in energy from my side is in Finland and Sweden. And in Finland, a very interesting study came because of the army. And this story is sort of typical of Finns. So they created lots of planes and tanks in cardboard to fool the Russians. If there is an invasion, they have tanks and planes all over. But the problem was that they had to add some heat, because for the sensors to detect that, otherwise, they would not fool anyone. So they created heaters that are printed on nanocellulose, all over. There's a company called Warming Surfaces. It's going to come public soon. So then they develop another thing, which was how to so they have another company, it's not Sweden, I think it's it's Danish. It's a company that captures energy from light. So this thesis from my student looks to every source of possible energy that you can capture. How can you store, and you can optimize in a renewable way, okay? And so I'm optimistic that Internet of Nature will not be a burden, and it will illustrate, this idea of the Internet of free energy. But if you talk to large models, the ones OpenAI and all of these companies have, of course, it's terrible. And yeah.
When you were showing that video of the car and the car being picked up by the drone, and I just, I'm using system thinking, why? So from a system point of view, right? A drone transporting a person versus a drone transporting a person in the car.
Okay.
That does not make sense to me, kind of from energy, because, for example, a person say 200 pounds, right? And the car plus a person say 600 pounds.
You are totally right, to be honest. And the first time I looked to that, we made the same question. And have you worked with architects? It's very difficult. But, from a rational standpoint, it makes sense. Total sense. But the thing is, and also, there are lots of problems with that solution. The thing is that, in another hand, it has related to what are the goals for Tuga. Okay, so the initial goals for Tuga, and Tuga, for instance, in Portugal, is to to help anyone that has to commute. Okay, it's a small car, you know, so the goals are really, you know, social. Okay. This version I showed was in a completely different context, which was in Abu Dhabi, and they wanted to have something that would be overly impressive and people loved and would be able to pay. So it's from an environmental standpoint, from an economic standpoint, you are totally right. It doesn't make sense. From a spectacular standpoint, if you are rich and you are able to sell that services, you are going to love it, you know. And so I cannot say more because we got lots of investments for this vision, and you look at, and on top, I would never be transported by a drone on that car, that's for sure. But there are people that would love to be, you know, so you are totally right. It doesn't make sense. But anyway, it's, but some people like it and are willing to
The other
invest.
thing I think of is if you multiply that one by all the people that want one, and they can afford it, you may have an air traffic control problem.
Yeah, you know, there is this, I mean, there are companies, yeah, you are totally right. There are companies now, Embraer, you know, the Brazilian airplane manufacturer, has another company called Eve, which is doing exactly that. You know, they are also developing a eVTOL, you know, one of those, but they are looking to the software to manage the traffic in the city. But you are totally right; it's going to be hell. But yeah,
With the drone in the car, doesn't the car provide at least the batteries, if not also the motor to drive the drone part of it? So it's not like just throw a person up in the air.
well, you are right, totally right, and it should be that way. But it was not. It has not been developed like that. Right now, you know, basically what happened is, you know, this is sort of like a joke. So, AI Service named two innovations as one of the top 10 emerging mobile mobility startups in the world. So, we are invited to go to Abu Dhabi, and we arrive there at the harbor of Yas Island or something, and there is this Chinese Xipeng car flying over, and people, God, we have this small car, what are we doing here? You know, these guys are, you know, so this architect thinks, what can we do that is even more impressive? And then he asked the engineers, is this possible? And the other guy said, well, with 40 million, it is. But, you know, but you are right. You know, it is, you know.
Wait. You had that drone part lift off and then it went somewhere, right?
Yeah,
So you need a
that
battery
drone
to-
part
you
is
need a
like a
battery to do
service.
that.
You know, you call it and it picks your car and transports
Yeah,
it.
so it's gonna have its own power source.
Well, and that's what I was going to conclude.
Yeah.
The power source doesn't come from the car, you know, and in reality, you know, what the engineer said, this can never be electric. It doesn't have enough power. But anyway, this is the beginning. And I don't think, you know, I know that is sort of, it's not, you know, it's one more thing, you know, and not the most relevant thing on what we want to do. You know, I really think what we want to do is to, you know, and speaking from a Portuguese standpoint, you know, first of all, agriculture is still the major exporter in Portugal. And then we have something that I didn't refer here, which is very attractive, which is an economic exclusive area the size of Europe in the ocean. And so we start looking to, you know, and there are lots of pressures in the ocean to do deep sea mining and so forth and so forth. So we try to look to alternative ways of getting revenue. And we discovered this Spanish professor in Saudi Arabia that used sharks to sort of getting images from seagrass. He did genetic analysis of the seagrass to see the carbon removal, and he basically estimated the carbon credits that you get if you plant seagrass, okay, which were huge. So we started making calculations, and we looked to the continental platform of Portugal, and we said, well, it's going to be 10 billion a year if we plant seagrass. So we start talking with the Navy and said, well, there is something in Portugal that can change if we plant seagrass, if we have the drones to do the, you know, the monitoring, if we have the genetic analysis, and you know, so one guy that I know talked with JP Morgan, and JP Morgan said, we'll buy all those credits. And you know, I didn't put in this presentation because it's sort of, no, I mean, but it's one of the major engines of all of these efforts is to create additional revenues. You know, first for the farmers and then for Portugal. You know, and at the same time will enable us to keep the ocean. Otherwise, you know, we'll have all the pressures to do all kinds of stuff, and you know, that will destroy the ocean. There's a very other interesting area on the ocean, which is to find the Portuguese, you know, sunken ships from the past. You know, so there's a very interesting Portuguese company of divers, which teamed with Kevin Costner. Because Kevin Costner did the Water World, so they teamed with him to design a special to find the treasures. But that is not part of the Internet of Nature, but we are in contact. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor, for your wonderful presentation. I have two questions.
Sure.
The first one is, compared to Internet of Things, IoT, what are the add-up of Internet of Nature?
Okay.
Yeah, the second question is, in your opinion, what is the current or future research frontiers of the Internet of Nature?
Okay. So regarding IoT, basically, if you look to this bottle, how do I add intelligence to this bottle? Okay. So the only intelligence this bottle has is the barcode right now. It's not enough. Okay, so one of the first efforts, and that started at MIT, was to sort of revisit the RFID, you know, because if you have RFID here, you can have much more intelligence to this bottle. But you can have intelligence to this bottle in a completely different way through augmented reality. You basically recognize this bottle, and you have information, you overlay information on the bottle. Okay. Finally, you can have even a robot that transports the bottle. I don't want to, you know, and the bottle comes. So, Internet of Nature is about to give intelligence to objects in a number of different ways. Of course, in the Internet of Nature, we want to give intelligence to everything that is natural. You want to look to a bird and know what bird it is. You know, you want to know how you look to a tree, and you basically superimpose information on what the tree does for you. Okay, so in the Internet of Nature, there are these common elements of giving intelligence to life, to nature, and there is the use of Internet of Nature to do that. Many of the devices, for instance, for water treatment plants, will be Internet of Nature. You know, you have the sensors, you have the processors, you have the actuators. So Internet of Nature is like a part of a service to Internet of Nature. Regarding the research on Internet of Nature and environmental in general, I mean, there is no wider field. You know, one of the things that bothers me in Portugal, you know, I have this program with high school students. No one wants to go to the environmental area. No one. I mean, one or two for sort of idealistic reasons. When it's the greatest field, you know, everything is possible. You know, so one of my roles there is to tell them that, you know, look to the Internet of Nature. what we are going to do is on the frontier of the environmental area, but also on the technological area. Because the people for instance, on Friday I'm going to meet guys from Meta, from the glasses. They are developing the glasses in a completely different way. You know, they're not thinking that what the glasses do is to index everything. And if you index everything, for instance, you can have the circular economy, you know, because you can track everything you use, you know, and I mean, you can convert local stores in global stores. You can do a number of things. So I really think that, and that's just one segment of the environmental area. I really think if you look to the different technologies and you superimpose the different applications and you look from an application standpoint, it's sort of endless. The other thing is the social component. And one of the most difficult social components is, you know, very simple questions. How do I get the Portuguese to behave and recycle like normal people? You know, we recycle 15% and the Finns recycle 90%, you know. Why that happens? You know, how people change behaviors. You know, that's a very important research area. You know, and the lesson in Portugal, you know, in Portugal it used to be much worse. I mean, it's to the kids. You know, the kids are taught, and then they arrive home and tell the father, "Where are our recyclables?" And the father says, "I don't care." You know, so. You know, and then in the environmental area you have all the molecular biology side. You know, I think the environmental area is unbelievably rich, and it's a pity that, you know, at least in Portugal, it's not popular at all. You know, people want to do space. You know, I mean, for instance, the ocean. The ocean is just unbelievable. You know what you can do, and people prefer, you know, aerospace engineering and biomedical, you know, and biomedical is a pain, you know, you have to be 6 years, you know, with regulatory processes. So I really think the environmental area is just incredible, and my goal with Internet of Nature is to prove just that. This is the greatest area you can be, you know. There is nothing better than nature. I mean, it's just, you know, but anyway, yeah.
You really raise an important question here, which is an interesting one. One of the things that's stressed me with working with youth is more and more they experience reality on their computer.
Yeah.
That they don't. I remember taking some boys out camping and thinking, wow,
Yeah.
I'm like this. I'm in a basement all the time. And it seems to me this is more of that. And there's no reason to go out and look at real nature. You've got the Internet of Nature on your computer in the basement.
Well, the augmented reality thing, it enables you to have the digital on the real. So I had a PhD student, a brilliant PhD student called Marta Ferraz that now leads European Space Agency NASA project on, it's called Space Born or something, it's crazy. How to have kids in the space. But before doing that crazy project, she looked to the idea of exactly that. Why do we take kids out of the home and go to nature? And the result was that they would go to nature if they were accompanied by robots, which is sad, but it's true. I mean, I really think they got so much used to technological devices and that their interaction with the world, that the way to bring them to nature, I think is through either glasses that augment, or probably like Marta shows through robots. They would go very happily with robots to play, you know, like their dog or something. I mean, it's crazy. It's difficult to. I understand your frustration. I mean, I'm quite frustrated myself. The other thing, I think, you know, if you play sports outside, you are more amenable to like nature.
Yeah. One more question. I think, Antonio, when you were answering my question about that, you know, drones picking up that car, and you explained the reason why, and I I sense that, of course, you mentioned that because, for some funding agencies, sponsors of this project, actually, you or people cannot tell them that this does not make sense, because it's kind of somehow, right, they're playing towards human fascination of something. And we were saying kind of, we have these cars and
Yeah.
some Chinese flying cars, and so how do you reconcile between, even this one talk, when you talk about Internet of Nature, and
And I use this example, this crazy example.
and you have the vision that is really, right, it's kind of driving people towards sustainability, but then even when we were answering this question, even some of you say that you cannot say these things, even publicly. So somehow you see that.
I
many of us-
contradicted, yeah.
Yeah, many of us, right, while we are even telling the dreams to the future generations, but we are coming against some barrier. So for example, capitalism seeking rate of return, those are, those financial,
Yeah.
they're pursuing those things using the fascination of human beings. So how do you reconcile between human fascination versus human needs?
Well, regarding to that project, my belief is that, okay, right now, it doesn't make sense. But inside me, I really think one day it may make sense. And the reason it may make sense is that, they are not, the frontiers that we are pursuing are all expanding, but the capabilities that we have are expanding as well. So for instance, in that project, we have been working with a guy that works in supercapacitors. This is just a side. So supercapacitors will provide energy in a way that will enable that to be cheap and possible. One day, they don't exist now. Supercapacitors can be printed, and you can sort of have a roll of this substrate, and enable to do that in a cheap and economical way. So that's to defend myself. My defense is that one day that will be possible without environmental impacts. It's not now, but it's possible, and that vision maybe will be useful for people, to be transported. I mean, imagine emergencies, not for the everyday service. So I showed the video also because of the fascination aspect, and I really think that is part of a professor also, If I don't fascinate my students, I will lose them, and even if they have your opinion and that is wrong. So
It's a way to have fun.
actually, I really think one of the problems of the environmental area is that for the kids, the fascination is gone, and it's boring. I really think there are two drivers in today's culture. One is to be cool and coolness, and the other one is convenience. And I really think one of the problems of the traditional environmental message is that it's not convenient because you have to share the trash instead of just throwing, as an example of recycling. And then what is the fascination with that? And I really think that to be successful in Internet of Nature, you have to be both. You have to be convenient, and we have to value fascination, and I didn't mention that in my talk, then you have to have another level, which is sort of the more spiritual level, of doing the right thing. This is the right thing. This is for the future, for our sons and grandsons. We want them to have, to enjoy nature as we are enjoying now, and not to arrive there and have awful buildings, in a beautiful area. So I really think we have to have these three components, but fascination is one very important one, because otherwise you miss them, you don't attract them. I really think that I think Pete and Jerry and myself, I think we lived in an area where there was a fascination by the environmental area. When I came to the US, there was a fascination. It was unbelievably attractive. It was fantastic. This is the future. And now I don't think that the kids, unless they are idealistic, pursue that area as that. Because others, they play that role, the fascination. And I really think these areas are fascinating, and I really think we should work in that direction to show that they are. And I really think this thing of the, I really think all of these of the Internet of Nature, I think they can do that.
Could Berlin do that by helping people discover a greater variety of birds in their environment that they otherwise?
I think there are lots of programs that do it, you know, and I think the birds is one of the most successful. I mean, of course, there are lots of people that love nature and are engaged in nature and so forth. I'm talking about not those, but the ones that are not. You know, the kids that probably would, if they knew more, would be. You know, and I think that is the bridge. But I mean, of course, I mean, there are, the birds area is fascinating because there are people traveling all over the world, talking a lot. And I didn't mention one area that, we did an exercise with students on what they would love to have. And lots of them, you know, would love to have things that, you know, that were impossible until now, but they would become possible with AI and AR, which is, I want to see how my dog sees. I want to see how the fish sees me, you know. So there are lots of kids that want to do apps, you know, to talk with their dog, you know. I want to, so I've been doing this exercise, you know, with my dog, because I realize that a very smart dog understands 230 words. It's a lot. My dog is not that bright. He only understands 37. But even with those 37, the interaction is much better than if I didn't have that thing. So I really think that interaction of nature at that level, you know, it may be funny or superficial, but I think it's it's fascinating. And I saw the kids in high school immediately, wow, you know, I want to do that, you know. Yeah.
When you were talking about indexing objects like birds or like animals or trees, and were you talking about putting those through a system that would classify them and like relay information through AR glasses?
Yeah.
And how far do you think that is from now?
Yeah, I mean, right now there are apps already that recognize plants and birds and so forth. Mm-hmm. So with the glasses, it's very simple to look at. I think everyone in like 5 years will go to the garden and will know every plant and animal and bird that you look at. We have been working with a lady that has done work on trees to show, for instance, what you know, the role on the air pollution, on noise abatement, on the temperature and so forth. So I really think that what we'll have in the future is more and more that visualization of the invisible related to everything in the environment, and for the good and the bad, as I showed on the car. You know, we see the emissions of the car and we'll, and I think that will be unbelievably attractive and interesting, although it will be a struggle. I don't think if people looked to the real pollution of cars, of the emissions, I really think they would have a different way of looking into mobility. So I think it will be a very important educational element. Technologically, it's totally possible to do now. You know, the thing is that people don't have glasses, but they will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was thinking that we live in Los Angeles where we have the fires.
Yeah.
Recently, and I was imagining if you're somebody trying to think about rebuilding in those fire areas, how would you maybe use augmented reality to see the environment, to see the emissions, the toxicity,
definitely, yeah,
fire prevention things.
Yeah, I mean, in augmented reality, you are going to use data that will be generated somehow. You know, that has been used in the past in databases, in geographic information systems, and so forth. The difference. There are two differences. One is that you overlay information on reality, and at the same time, you are, because you have cameras, you are capture reality, you are using AI, and sort of translate what you are seeing. And the third thing is that you can visualize what it will be, you know. And I think that will happen.
Antonio, thanks again.
No, it's always my pleasure.